Welcome to the Disruptors Creed podcast. I'm Kristen Zeman, and I am shocked you're here. In this episode, I am joined by my partner in crime, Chris Tunney, and we are unpacking everything from glitter and drag queens to trauma and resilience. Fresh off of our time at Naples Pride Fest, we talk about the pure joy of drag shows, the power of showing up for community, and why love and acceptance will always drown out hate. But this episode goes deeper. We explore how resilience is built, not inherited, and how discomfort, adversity, and chaos aren't just part of life. They're the best teachers. You'll hear personal stories, hard-earned truths, and a little bit of sass, obviously, as we challenge the way society overprotects kids and avoids pain. Spoiler alert, it's not helping anyone. So whether you're a parent, a partner, or just someone trying to figure your life out, this one's for you. Because at the end of the day, resilience isn't about avoiding the fall. It's about rising in full view of the people who matter. So let's disrupt the narrative that struggle is something to be feared, because it's the very thing that builds our strength. Let's get into it. Hey, Chrissy, happy podcast day.
Hi, how are you?
Good. How's my favorite intern?
Well, she's fine. She does think she should be upgraded to co-host, but I have had some listeners write in and ask me how I'm feeling about it. I told them that I'm processing, and I think that you told me if I work real hard that I could, move up. Do you see that I am repping your podcast on my tank? Had
Right
some people
on your
ask
boobs,
about
right there.
They've asked about your merch. We got to figure that out.
Disruptor. Challenge everything, build better.
So
so you are literally making the case for marketing representative and not co-host. And every time you talk about merch, I put you in the marketing box. So you're not helping your case. So you really should study what a co-host and co-producer, what the job description is. And then we'll talk.
I'm not there's no co-producing anything. That is all you.
You don't want to edit. You don't want to do anything but just show up on camera and do none of the work behind the scenes. So let's talk about our weekend. We had a great weekend. We went to Naples, Florida Pride Fest. And the reason that that is significant is because there was a lot of hullabaloo surrounding it, because there was a drag show since 2017. They have had Naples Pride Fest, and there have been drag performances outside on the main stage in this big park. And guess what happened during those years? They had drag shows on the stage.
Nothing. Great
Oh my God.
performances. A bunch of love and laughter and fun.
Nothing. So there was a big court challenge, and Naples Pride
Well,
won the court
remember
case.
last
thing.
Last year, Naples City won the court case, and all the drag shows were pushed inside. So this year, it went back to court. Naples Pride won it, and in the 11th hour, it was overturned, and the performances were pushed back inside again.
Yes. And I find this hilarious because there are a few things that I want to say about this. Number one, I have been to concerts. I have seen performances, even live.
Let's use Justin Timberlake and Janet Jackson, where Nipplegate.
Well, that was a malfunction. I'm doing air quotes. That was a malfunction. My point being is that rock stars, pop stars, performers actually have more lewd movements than I see at drag shows. Drag shows are pure joy. Drag shows are men dressed up as women who are lip syncing. And some of them are terrible lip syncers and others are professional and they are remarkable. But when they walk out on stage, it's hard to not feel anything but joy. There was nothing lewd about it. And I don't know. I just find them to be pure joy. And I would challenge those who think that they are grooming children to actually, attend one. I dare you to not feel anything but pure joy in all of your molecules. It was so fun. So anyway, I was glad to support that. And there were some protesters out there, and I will share my favorite sign of one of the protesters, a giant sign, and it said, "Save the gerbils outlaw homosexuality. That was so funny. That was so funny. And also very revealing that that human being probably has never had an interaction with a gay man, because if you have a gay man in your life, you would never hold up that sign. We know lots of gay men, and I'm going to tell you that gerbils are safe. So that was preposterous. The rest of the protesters said everyone was going to hell. God bless everyone. But it
So
was a lot of fun.
I want to say that s- um, since I've come out, so it's been, I don't know, almost 27, 28 years. I did lose a couple friends in the beginning, a couple of comments that I didn't care for, but in the past, I would say 15 years, I've never really felt discrimination. And especially since moving here to Naples, because everybody kept saying to us, why would you move to Florida? Why would you move to Florida? Because of the way they feel about people like you and Kristen. And I can say that since we've moved here, we've never felt any discrimination whatsoever. And to walk through those lines yesterday really put it in perspective for me, because I haven't felt it. But when you see it put in your face, telling you that you're going to hell, telling you that what you're doing is an abomination, that loving someone, two adults that love each other and treat each other with respect is an abomination. It's hard to see. And that's happened at every Pride Fest we've ever been to, whether it was Chicago or Washington or Naples or wherever we've been. When we've been in California, it doesn't matter, but it's so hard. And it makes me so sad when the world is so full of hate. There's so many things that we should genuinely be upset with that we're not. And instead we're choosing to pick on people who just want to love one another. Everybody's consenting adults. Nobody's doing anything wrong. No, that's what they choose to get so upset about. And it kind of leads right into this week's podcast and the blog you wrote on resilience, because I looked at all the young kids that were out there yesterday, and you and I, we have been through a lot in our lives. We have built up resilience. So seeing that, did it make me sad? Yes. Did it make me want to hide who I am or be someone different? Absolutely not. But I worried about the younger kids out there, because we've spent a lifetime protecting our children. And there's a lot of kids who don't have the resilience that's needed or the thick skin that's needed to walk through life when they're going to have people shouting at them and telling them that who they are and who they love is wrong.
Yeah. That's why a tribe matters. Just along those same lines, before we delve deep into the topic of resilience, which really had nothing to do with this. Let me just say this. Let me say this about science. First of all, I come from two parents who are heterosexual. So, it's possible that, heterosexual people make gay children. And
Me too.
it's also possible that gay parents and drag shows don't make gay children. And we have 4 examples of that. We have 4 children. And since they were little, we took them to drag brunches because they were just so fun. And all of our kids are straight, which is just such a counter argument to this whole notion of how drag shows are bad for kids.
Not only are they straight, but they're all successful.
Yeah. They contribute
in their
to
careers.
society. Yes. Good humans.
They're not degenerates. None of them have been arrested.
Yes.
None of them have been in jail. Nobody's had drug problems. They are all to the most part, every kid, nobody's, but we took them to all these places and led everything with love in our lives, and our kids are all okay.
Yes. So back to what you were saying, I wanted to sneak that in there. Back to what you were saying about those individuals who have children that they have turned their backs on. Shame on you. That's all I can say. I can't imagine having a child that is different or grappling with being gay or being trans and having someone turn their back on them. And I'll tell you what I loved to see yesterday. There was a booth of individuals wearing t-shirts, and it was just called Mom Hugs. And it was basically for those kids who have had people turn their backs on them. And these are moms that say, I will take you in and I will give you the hug that you need. I don't know. That always makes me really emotional. But I just think about the people who have issue with trans people, because it's something that I don't understand for sure. So I've tried to lean into it to understand. I don't grapple with that But let me tell you how trans people living their lives affect me. Yeah, that wasn't a glitch. That was genuinely just silence, because it fucking doesn't. Okay, yeah, and that's how gay people living their lives should affect you. If you don't want to get gay married, you shouldn't, I guess. So I don't know. Perhaps I'm oversimplifying it for those who want to pick and choose the things in the Bible. So anyway, let's delve into the topic this week since we got off on such a tangent. But I wrote this blog post because I'm fascinated by the notion of resilience. I want to try to understand why some people seem to get through things, bounce back from trauma, from things that happen to them. You, of all people, have a lot of experience in this in your career. You have worked child sex crimes. You have met with so many victims of trauma, and you've had the same observation. I mean, talk a little bit about some of your victims and their mental wellness after the incident.
There's a scale of abuse, and abuse is abuse. One's not less than the other, but there's different crimes that happen, and I've had kids who have come in who have been touched, and I have kids who have come in who,
let's just say, far worse.
Far worse. I even listen. Touching is bad.
I was worried you were going to start getting graphic.
No, I'm not going to do that. But I don't want to lessen anything, because the fact is being touched is just as bad. My point was I had one girl who was abused by her bio dad, and it was terrible abuse, and it went on for years. And this child was amazing. She did an overhear against her father and asked him and she wanted to do it. We didn't even ask her to do it, because for me, I don't want to trigger that kind of trauma. And she's like, nope, because she was tired. She didn't want to be abused anymore. And she
explain, what an overhear is for people who don't know.
An overhear is she made a phone call to her dad, and we recorded it. And she got her dad to admit to everything that he had been doing to her on a recorded phone call. And this girl is spectacular. I mean, I have watched her grow now since the 6th grade, and she just graduated college. She is doing so well in life because she had this amazing support system with her mom and her stepfather. The minute she told, she was believed. They put everything in place to get her all the help she needs. And she had the resilience she needed to get through all of this with love and support from her family. And so she is very successful. And I had, and then I had another victim who was a little bit older than she was, who was abused by a mom's boyfriend. And the abuse was pretty bad as well. But instead of having the same resilience, I am heartbroken because this kid who I loved, at this point now, the last I heard, she's a prostitute. She has drug and alcohol problems. She's been pregnant multiple times. And it's terrible because she didn't have the platform of support and love from her mom. Her mom was mad at her. And so she didn't have the resilience to get through this. And it's so interesting watching how much having a great concrete base, right? Your family, your friends, your chosen family, whatever it is, that love and support that helps you build resilience. And even with our kids, you build resilience in a child by not picking them up every time they fall down. They fall down and you let them fail.
Right. Okay. So I wanted to lead with the extreme cases of trauma and the things that happen in our lives where we are victims of very deep traumatic incidents, experiences, because I think that is important. And I know that not all resilience is the same, and you can argue that that is something horrific that has happened to a person. It's no wonder that they don't come through that. Okay. So it's important that we talk about trauma, but I do think that in the arena of resilience is that there is something to that. You mentioned a support system. So let's go back to maybe just the not so deep stuff in life and talk about how resilience is built. And I can think of many instances in our lives. Well, first of all, I can go back to my own childhood where I know how resilience was built in me because I had a father who basically told me to suck it up and take the pain anytime something happened. And so like this sort of idea of figure it out is what I was taught when I was a kid. And I took that same parenting style with my children. And I am reminded of a few times in my kids' lives when I told them to suck it up. But there was one in particular, and this is our youngest child, Jake. He was in junior high, and we got a letter
Oh,
that turned his world upside down. Our other kids had already gone through junior high school and they were at the high school. So our youngest, during his time, it was seventh grade going into eighth grade. The school district redrew the boundary lines, and he had just 1 year left of middle school and found out that he would have to transfer to an entirely different school, which means his entire friend group remained together at his old school, and he was going to be the outlier. And when I received that letter, I was furious. Like almost every other parent, I wanted to charge into the school district with a pitchfork, metaphorically speaking, and demand that they reverse this decision. So I showed up to this district meeting. The meeting was filled with angry parents, fists in the air. They were raised voices. And the district officials, I remember, rolled out this PowerPoint where they showed the reasons, pointing to graphs and data, explaining the balanced student distribution across the city, and that being the reason they had to redraw the map. So I thought it actually felt logical, right? But logic, doesn't always supersede emotion. It just didn't feel fair. It felt bureaucratic and it felt cold. So came the open mic portion, and parents just trotted up to that microphone and they started throwing around words like trauma. And maybe it's because I was a cop and I'm thinking, in my mind, I was like, oh God, wait, hold on. I'm so mad here. But it put things into perspective. I thought, this is not actual trauma. One parent said irreparable harm, but one woman stood at the microphone and she said to the district officials, who is going to pay for my son's therapy? And that was the moment that I got up and I walked out. And son Jake followed me and he was super confused. And once we were in the car, I turned to him and I said, Jacob, this sucks. I'm so sorry that you have to change schools and that you have to leave your friends behind, but there is nothing that we can do to change this situation. You can't control it, so you have to adapt. And then I offered him this perspective that just happened to pop into my mind while I was sitting in the car. And I said, you know how all of the middle schools feed into the high school? I said, well, you've already been to one middle school. Now you're going to another middle school. So you'll know kids from two different schools. That means when you get to high school, you'll basically know double the people. And he was quiet for a minute. He paused and he looked at me and he went, yeah, that makes sense. And that was it. That was it. He didn't want to leave his friends, but he totally reframed it.
So his resilience level was there because we were right there to support them if they needed us, but we didn't step in to fix anything.
Well, that moment taught me more about resilience than any psychology class or leadership book ever has. And here's the way I was thinking of it. I mean, that mother who demanded compensation for her son's discomfort, I have wanted to look them up and find out, how they're coping in life, because she was asking the world to change instead of teaching her kid to adapt. And I started to really hone in on kids who couldn't cope that I came across, whether it was our children's friends. And I pointed to parents who equally couldn't cope. And I realized that we learn that from our parents. Resilience is not something that you're born with. It is something that you build. And as a parent, it's not your job to prevent pain. It's your job to prepare ourselves and our kids to handle pain, because I have a really tough lesson for all of you disruptors. Life is not comfortable. Bad things are going to happen. And it genuinely is how we respond to it. I don't care how trite that is. It's not what happens to us. It's how we respond to it, right? That's actually a truism because it's true. damn it, adults need to learn this as well, because you are creating children who cannot cope with life. I was just at I won't say the name of the university, but I was talking to some police officers, university cops, and they were telling me that the biggest thing that they deal with on campus is kids who are suicidal. And I say, what are the issues that they're having? And they can't cope with the anxiety if they get a B, or God forbid a C, or, a challenge that they just cannot cope. And I'm like, what the hell is going on here? And I'm putting it right back on parents, is that, most of us are walking around with unfinished resilience. Like, we never really learn how to sit with discomfort, or if we have, we don't want our children to go through that. And so, I look at adults who unravel when their relationships fall apart, or they get passed over for promotion. In fact, I can point to so many people in our police department when someone told them, no, you don't get that training class. No, you're not getting promoted. You're not getting that assignment you put in for. It was the people who didn't kick the garbage can, and said, okay, how can I be better? Versus those who threw up their hands, gave up, and blamed the world. And, life is not designed to protect us from hardship. It's meant to teach us how to overcome it. So there's a lot to unpack here.
Okay, so that resonates with me, because here's what it makes me think of. And this isn't like back in my day, but when we were younger, when you went and tried out for a team, some people didn't make it.
Mm-hmm.
And when you played for a team, sometimes you didn't play, because the best players were the ones who were put on the field, because what's the goal of a competition is to win.
Mm-hmm.
And then I look at, not everybody got a trophy. You didn't get a participation award. You got a trophy if you took first, second, or third place, and that was it. And then I look at our kids, and all of a sudden we're in this world where everybody gets to play, whether you
Mm-hmm.
suck or you don't. And then I saw it with some of our kids' friends, the unrealistic expectations their parents put on them
Mm-hmm.
to be, to go to the major leagues, to, go and do this, to go to the NFL, to whatever it was, because we start telling our children, you can be anything you want to be.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand that there is a point where we support our kids and say, if you work hard enough, you can be successful. But what's the percentage of your top athletes that go to the NFL or go to the NBA or go to the MLB? It's like 0.0001%. But we put these unreasonable expectations on our kids, and then when they aren't successful, they can't handle it.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, they get a C or a B, and they're beyond, they're beside themselves.
But what you're describing there, to me, it doesn't fit, because look at college entry, acceptance rates. These kids have to be perfect. They can't just have a 4.0. They have to take the dual credit classes to get a 4 point, whatever, and then they have to be a volunteer, and they have to be an athlete, or what have you. That's kind of not a great argument, because it's not just parents that impose that on people. It's actually society that says you can be the best of the best and you're going to get rejected from schools. But let's go back to a few things you said about teaching your kids that, you can't be everything. And a few examples come to mind. We have we have 4 children, and of the 4 children, 2 can sing really beautifully. Bailey cannot, and Bailey loves to sing, but from as she was a young little tyke, and we were like, oh girl, you shouldn't sing in public. So I'm not going to encourage Bailey to join the choir, because she's got a voice like mine. We love to sing, and we make a hell of a duet, but it hurts everyone's ears. It makes them bleed. Jimmy is the smartest child in our house, as far as when it comes
to about the mathlete.
Oh my God. But wait, let me paint the picture here. As far as like SAT, ACT scores, he knocked it out of the park compared to our other kids. So the joke is, like, Jim is the smartest person in our house. Now, he doesn't know how to make eggs. So, it's funny.
Or mac and cheese.
So he's super book smart, but he did not make the mathlete team, and he came home, and you genuinely would have thought one of his limbs got cut off the way that he was crying. And so I said, I'm going to let you have that. I'm going to let you have this. I'm going to let you feel this pain and this hurt. And then we're going to dust ourselves off and pick ourselves up. And what's that song by Chumbawamba?
I get
I
knocked
get knocked
down.
down. I
Don't
get
sing.
knocked
Don't
down.
sing it.
I won't sing it. I want to sing it. I get knocked down, but I get up again. So I blared that through the house and I made him sing it with me. And he was all smiles after that because it's true. If you get knocked down, you can get up again. So I let him cry for a little bit and I was like, all right, no more. All right, we're done with this bullshit. So that's what I think parents need to do instead of like, don't you know some parents that would have marched their butts to the school and be like, why didn't my son make the mathletes team? And that's kind of what you were talking about, is like that everybody who makes the team, we're not teaching our kids that, you know what, sometimes they're going to get cut because they're not as good. So what does that mean? Well, work harder. That means get better. That means practice, keep showing up, don't give up, because it's the resilient ones who continually keep showing up, keep fighting for it. So that's why I think that resilience is built. We say we want growth, but growth only happens through tension. You don't get stronger without resilience. You don't become wiser without failure. And you don't become resilient without getting wrecked a little, right?
I agree. Like you have to, life is about being uncomfortable. That's how you grow. That's how you learn. When you sit
Yeah.
in comfort all the time, you never learn anything. Without failure, you never get any better.
Yeah. People will blame it on our generation. Like I always hear that, we're Gen X kids and we were latchkey kids. I think you were too.
Nope.
Again, I grew up with a steady diet of figure it the fuck out. I literally have that printed on a t-shirt, FitFo. And so I don't actually think it's a generational thing, because I know a lot of parents present day who subscribe to the same concept. Now, listen, this doesn't mean throwing your kids to the wolves. It's about, presenting them choices. What do you think you should do? Allowing them to problem solve, and hey, even letting them get a little maimed in this thing we call life, like letting them fall down. And I mean both physically and literally. It's like, we put these bubble wraps around our kids, and because we just don't want to see them hurt. And I will tell you, the worst thing in the world, and this, is to watch your child in pain. I get it. We have watched our kids get bullied. We have watched our kids be, in fights with other kids. We have watched our kids get rejected from one thing after another. And it's so hard, and you want to swoop in and try and save the day and fix it for them. But if you do that, then they're not going to build this steady diet of resilience, and they're not going to be able to cope with life. And then those kids are going to grow up into adults that can't cope either. And I did some research on this just to back up some of the conversations that we've been having. And according to the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology, people who have experienced adversity in life reported better mental health and greater life satisfaction than those who had experienced none. So the bottom line is that moderate adversity, I said moderate. That's why I wanted to start out with, real traumatic adversity, but moderate actually strengthens us. It teaches us coping skills, perseverance, and emotional flexibility. And so if we keep shielding ourselves from the hard stuff, or worse, modeling fragility in front of our kids, then I'm just going to say it, you're passing down weakness.
I agree. I think that we have to let ourselves be uncomfortable. We have to let our children experience discomfort, and then we have to let them find their way out of it.
Mm-hmm.
We're just listening to Pivot. Scott Galloway said it best. We're so worried about protecting our kids from the outside world, yet we're not protecting them at all from social media and the internet. So we're so worried we don't let our kids go out and play anymore, and they're at home in front of video games and social media, and that's way more damage than letting them go out and figure out the world, because you're supposed to go out and have conflict with your friends.
I want to underscore this, because that I loved what he said. He said we overprotect our kids outside in the world and we underprotect them online. And you and I looked at each other, we're like, oh my God, that is so very true. Think about, a lot of your cases stemmed from, online, whatever the interaction that has happened online. So that is so true. And we absolutely underprotect them online and overprotect them when we should be saying, go outside, go play, go get into some good trouble, right?
Yeah. That having a friend group and being outside of the house and
Mm-hmm.
spending time in that friend group, that's how we learn conflict resolution. How many times when our kids were younger, if they got in a fight with one of their friends, all of a sudden the friend's mom is at our door
So
and wants to
true.
talk about what happened. And I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. They're going to figure it out because I'm not getting involved. I
You're
mean,
so right.
I could not imagine marching up to one of Megan's friends' moms and be like, your daughter was mean to my daughter and we need to, no, we don't. They will figure it out. And I think that's half the problem, is that we've spent so much time trying to keep our children from conflict. But just even with my friends in junior high, when we had a fight, we had to work it out. Our moms never got involved.
So I think the bottom line here is somewhere along the way in our quest to become better parents, we started bubble wrapping our kids from reality. And honestly, that's not compassion. That's sabotage. So I think the point here, disruptors, is to let your kid be uncomfortable. Let yourself be uncomfortable. Then help them reframe it, rewrite the story. So discomfort is not the enemy, it's the catalyst.
And it's never too late to build resilience. Just because mistakes were made and we tried to overprotect, or maybe we were overprotected, because I have a lot of friends my age that don't have resilience. It's never too late. And what do you think are the best steps to start building resilience no matter what age you are?
I go back to letting your kid struggle, letting yourself struggle. I think that the next time life hands you or your kid a job loss, a relocation, a relationship detour, some sort of adversity, some sort of speed bump, roadblock, even a brick wall, I think we ask ourselves, why is this happening to me? And what am I going to do to get over that speed bump, to get over that hurdle, and to climb or go around that brick wall or to smash through it? And ask yourself, what am I learning from this? What is this trying to teach me? And when I get on the other side, strength will I gain from it? And I think that is where real disruption happens. It happens in the resistance. So resilience isn't built in comfort. It is built in chaos. That's the bottom line. So stop shielding yourself from chaos. And I think we just have to let people struggle and then teach them how to rise.
Amen.
All right. Beautiful. Well, we're done here. Good talk. Hey, disruptors, keep on disrupting. We'll see you next week.
See you next week.
And that's a wrap on this week's episode of the Disruptors Creed, where we don't do average, and we sure as hell don't do status quo. It's produced by me, Kristen Zeman, because I like to be in control of everything. Musical score is by Ethan Reardon and Jake Zeman, because talent runs deep in this gene pool. If you like what you heard, do that thing. Click subscribe, like, follow, or whatever button keeps this chaos flowing into your ears. And if you didn't like it, you probably need it more than you think. Head over to KristenZeman.com and sign up for my weekly brain droppings, where I dump thoughts, disrupt your thinking, and hopefully light a fire under your ass, all conveniently delivered to your inbox every Monday. You're welcome. Now go out there and cause some good trouble. Until next time, keep on disrupting, my fellow disruptors. Onward and upward.